Effort is loud because it depends on visibility. Ownership is quiet because it does not. This distinction explains why exhaustion is often mistaken for progress and activity for achievement. Effort announces itself through motion, long hours, constant urgency, and visible struggle. It asks to be acknowledged. Without acknowledgement, it dissolves. Ownership, by contrast, functions without display. It produces outcomes without noise, permission, or explanation. This is why societies praise effort yet reward ownership. One is emotionally compelling, the other is structurally decisive. Modern systems encourage the celebration of effort because effort is easily extracted and endlessly renewable. Visibility keeps people engaged, while silence creates independence. Hard work is elevated to a virtue, not because it leads to control, but because it sustains participation. People are taught to admire the grind while remaining distant from the mechanisms that quietly accumulate leverage. Ownership is rarely discussed at the beginning of a journey. It is mentioned only after success has already been achieved. This is not accidental. Effort maintains system. Ownership alters their direction. Ownership appears quite not because it lacks force, but because it has already been compressed. It concentrates past effort into structures that no longer require constant input. A system that compounds does not demand attention, it retains memory. Effort, on the other hand, has no memory. It must be renewed continuously, which is why it feels urgent and exhausting. Loudness is not a measure of importance, it is a symptom of impermanence. The more effort must repeat itself, the more it must signal its presence. Ownership withdraws from visibility precisely because it no longer needs to assert itself. Most people misinterpret this dynamic. They assume intensity produces progress, when in reality it often reveals the absence of capture. They optimize for output rather than direction, for recognition rather than leverage. As a result, they accumulate experience but not control, reputation but not durability. Their work remains dependent on presence. The moment attention shifts, value collapses. The failure is not a lack of discipline, but a lack of structure. Work that cannot survive its own absence is not building, it is performing. Valderium treats this distinction as foundational. It views effort as a temporary instrument, not a permanent identity. In this framework, effort is valuable only when it is deliberately converted into ownership, into assets, systems, and intellectual structures that function independently of constant involvement. Silence becomes the indicator of progress. When results no longer require explanation, when value persists without supervision, when time begins to compound rather than resist, this is not chance, that is architecture. In the end, progress is rarely loud. What reshapes reality is not the noise of effort, but the quiet endurance of what effort leaves behind. Most people spend their lives trying to be seen working. A smaller group allows their work to disappear into systems that continue operating long after attention has moved elsewhere. Effort speaks today, ownership speaks later, and only one of them keeps speaking when you are no longer present.